When we're live and recording.
Okay, we're ready.
Great. Okay, good evening and welcome to the Finance and Claims Committee of the Norwalk Common Council for today, Thursday, September 12th, 2024, beginning at 7:04 p.m. We'll start with the roll call. Councilmember Jim Freyer.
Here.
Councilmember Johan Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Heather Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Doug Sutton. He is present. I guess he's muted, but he is here. Councilmember Dewan. Yes, great. Councilmember Dewan Wiggins.
Here.
And thank you. And Councilmember Greg Burnett. We have a quorum. And so we will move on to item 3, which is public participation. We did not receive any emails prior to the meeting. If anyone has dialed in and wishes to speak, you can raise your hand. I see one hand raised right now. If we could allow that person to speak. And it looks like it's Diane Lauricello. Hello, Diane. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee and staff. Diane Lauricello, 21 Little Fox Lane. Just a few things. The first is I ask that there be a correction of the minutes of August 8th. Possibly there was some confusion because I checked the video. I had mentioned Butler Street. I had requested to find out why there wasn't an eminent domain action taken long before this site had received its permits for housing and in the current market. It was item 10 on the agenda. So I'm pretty sure I either just said Butler Street or I said item 10, which is Butler Street. I did not say number 10 Butler Street. The correct is number 6 Butler Street, as you all know at this point. The second thing is, Mr. Chairman, at some point I would like to know, I haven't gotten back answers to my questions. I do not know who will give me these answers, but during public participation on August 8th, I asked for a list or how I can get a list of the ARPA expenditures and as to why was eminent domain contemplated long before the current 1.4 million. So I haven't gotten any answers to that. So if you, even offline, you could let me know or have a staff person let me know. And then lastly, I just wanted to address on the agenda tonight, capital and operating budget calendar. I'm very pleased that the charter revision saw to it in our time of reviewing it that the public should be able to weigh in before even the budget letter went out to the departments, because the public who pays the taxes, etc., they might have great ideas on what to add, where to get revenue, or what to cut. And so I wanted to make sure that whenever I've heard there will be a public hearing prior to the process beginning, I'd like to make sure that you announce it widely, use both social media and the press, have a press conference, because not everyone looks at the city Instagram, and we know the website is in need of a lot of help. So that was the last thing I wanted to say. Thank you for your time that you all spend, but please make sure we use more creative ways to let the public know about important meetings such as the imminent budget season. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. If you can send me a email directly with your question, the comment that you wanted a response on, I will forward it the proper source. Okay. Is there anyone else, a hand raised, that wishes to speak? I do not see anyone, so at this time I will close public participation. And we'll move on to item, which is approval of the minutes of the following finance meeting, which was August 8th, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Councilmember Heather Dunn, thank you. Do we have any questions? I have two. One on page one, where it says call to order. And it's just a minor correction where it says there was a quorum. Quorum present should be listed under roll call. After we conduct a roll call, we determine if a quorum is present. And then the other correction, as stated by Ms. Lauricella, under public participation, that 10 should be 6 Butler Street. So just change the 10 to a 6. Do we have any other deletions or corrections or changes to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the minutes as amended, please raise your hand. And it looks like we have 1, 2, Burnett, Sutton, Lopez, Dunn, and Mr. Wiggins, are you voting or
I'm gonna abstain.
abstain? All right, great. So we have 1 abstention. So there are with modified corrections. So that moves us to item 5, which is an update from our tax assessor, Paul Gorman. So over to you for any updates you might have.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody had a nice summer and a good beginning to the fall. Just a few things to touch on. Next week on Thursday and Friday will be the Board of Assessment Appeals for motor vehicles. The last count that I had from the system earlier this afternoon was 25 people had applied for their cars. On an offshoot to that, we are going to be, for October 1, going to be valuing cars in a completely different way than had previously been being done. The state amended some past legislation and made some corrections. And on October 1st, we will now value vehicles on a 20-year depreciation schedule based upon MSRP. No longer will we be using our JD Power pricing guides based on clean retail, where it was based on sales data. It's just going to be, if you bought a $40,000 MSRP car for the next 20 years, 5% is going to come off every year. And at the end of that 20 years, you'll be dumped into the 20-year vehicle pricing, which is a residual value of $500 for those people that keep a car for 20 years. Along with that legislation, there was also legislation passed to exempt the dwelling of permanently and totally disabled veterans. I don't have a lot of details on that because I'm going to be going to a training class on September 26th to hopefully get all the kinks ironed out to make sure that we do it the right way, and get the word out to our veteran community so that they can start bringing us their information to get the higher level exemption that's going to be made available to them with the new law. The last thing, or second to last thing that we're working on, is we're diligently working our permit base to work on the grand list and its growth for this year. We do have some challenges on doing that, mainly just because with the phase in, there's some special laws about when you have construction increases, you also phase in the construction increases. So we'll be doing that diligently, and things won't be growing like they normally do because we won't be picking up 100% of the changes right up front. And then the last thing is I'm working with Joyce and the Corporation Counsel Department to put together an interactive spreadsheet that is going to track our 2023 grand list revaluation cases. Excuse me. I should have that. Hopefully we'll have that up and running by the end of next week. And that'll allow us to track cases and be able to track what their impact is right up front. I'll be able to, it'll be a shareable document on this new format that Joyce is testing so that the law department can update it, I can update it, and we can track what money we're losing in court cases, what money we're saving in court cases, so that we can report to you guys on, say, like a quarterly or half-year basis as to how the court cases are going. Right now, there's nothing to report because they're still all just in the discovery phase. There's been no actions taken on any of the 2023 grand list cases. Outside of that, I'll open it up if anybody has any questions for me.
Councilmember Jim Freya.
Thank you, Mr. Gorman, for that update. Can you give us any idea when that information is going to start to be available? The status of the appeals?
Well, I should have the spreadsheet or it's not even a spreadsheet. It's like a shareable form that Joyce is producing, and hopefully I'll have that by the end of next week. Outside of that, all that's going to be at that point in time is it's going to be a listing of all the cases that are active and what the appraised.
I think we
Did we
lost them.
lose Paul? Paul, are you there?
Jim, I can jump in here. So this is a new product that Joyce is working with so that we can do more with forms, and it's a pretty robust product, and we're using it both internally and for external facing.
I'm sorry, there we go.
And so yeah, it may take a little bit of time for us to get it up and running, but and a lot of the data that's going to be in there will be for for our internal purposes, but for Paul it'll be a great tool for him to have updated and to be able to report to you guys and the BET with summary information about how those cases are progressing.
So maybe next month?
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Great.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, great. It appears that we've lost Paul.
There he is.
Oh, looks like
Oh.
he's back. No, no, he's gone. And Councilmember Dewan Wiggett, your hand is raised. You have a question?
Yes, thanks, Chairman Burnett. I wanted to know more about the car taxes. I don't know if I caught it correctly, but can you explain a little more about the well, did he come back on?
It looks like
Yes,
he's not.
back.
Okay, he's back.
Paul, you there? It looks like you have yourself muted.
You're muted, Paul. You can go ahead and ask your question. I might be
All
able
right,
to
no,
help
I
you
just
out.
wanted to know more about the car taxes, because I know he said talked a little bit about the 20 years. If the values dropped if you had your car for over 20 years to 500, but I didn't quite catch the beginning of that. If you can kind of explain that a little more to me.
So I think what Paul was referring to is under the new statute. There's a new value.
Sorry about that, guys. I lost my.
You there, Paul? So under the new state statute, there's a new methodology for valuation of cars, and that'll start in the 24 grand list year. And what's the other change that they made was that for any car, there's going to be a minimum value of $500. So now when you have some of these antique or older vehicles that are completely exempt, there's gonna be a minimum value on those cars. And under the new, and then more broadly, under that new methodology, what's gonna happen is that they will take the value of each car as if it were new. And then each year they would deduct 5% from the value of the car. And so it's going to be, it no longer is it going to be based on the condition of the car or, mileage or anything like that. It'll be completely based on the age of the car. And every year it'll drop in value.
So what would be the overall percentage? So if you have a 2024 car, so you're saying it's based on the value of so how would you break that down? Because I'm
So you
not quite understanding.
And I don't know the exact methodology, but you start at the year that it was purchased, and there's an MSRP for the car. We'll get all that information from the state. It'll be handed down to us from the state, and also working with QDS, and they'll be able to every year. It's just going to be a reduction in the value of 5%. So you start at from the year that it was purchased, the MSRP, and then you just keep reducing it each year. It'll go down. So it's going to be standard. It'll be across the board, every town, and there's not going to be any kind of consideration to the condition of the car or mileage on the car.
Jared, does that make it easier for the calculation? And the second part of that, my question is this a good thing for residents, taxpayers, or which methodology is beneficial to residents?
Both very good questions. From a taxpayer standpoint, we're not sure how that's going to work out yet, because we don't have that list of MSRPs that we can run something on yet. And so we don't know that information yet, and how that would shake out between, what would have happened otherwise under the old methodology and what would happen now. There is one other component to it, which we know generally what the impact's going to be. And that component says that in the statute that the mill rate that you assign to the motor vehicle tax cannot be higher than the mill rate for real estate. So in other words, we're going to have to set the mill rate for cars at the same level as our lowest real estate tax mill rate. And so, I think you all know this, the mill rate for cars right now is about 32 and change. And so that's going to actually end up dropping down to somewhere in the low 20s probably. So it has to be, so the motor vehicle rate has to be at least as low as your lowest real estate mill rate. It can be lower.
Do we plan to get any type of communication out? You said this is effective when? Starting
with the grand list year that starts this October.
October, right? So
Right.
do we plan to get a communication out in some form to alert Norwalk residents of this change, so at least they're aware of the change in the motor vehicle assessment?
I don't know that anything has gone out yet. I'm sure we will. We still have, that year of doing the valuation. So there, we still have some time, and we just finished the real estate taxes and the tax sale. And so, I don't think we didn't want to put too much out there and too much on everybody's plate. And I think it's still kind of early to let them know, but absolutely, we will keep the public informed about it.
Great. Councilmember Dewan Wiggins.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so those are great questions because that was kind of going to be my next question. How does it affect the taxpayers? But it was my understanding that, so I was under the impression that this was a city thing. So this is a state issue that comes down to the city, because are we paying taxes to the city or to the state?
So basically those three issues, the $500 minimum, right, and the minimum, the change in the mill rate, to have to be as low as the lowest real estate tax. And then the methodology, those three things were handed down from the state. That's new state statute.
Okay, and something that we just have to adapt to. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Councilmember Heather Dunn.
Hi, are the fees or the taxes the same for passenger and commercial vehicles? So if you have like a combo plate or it's the same? So if you own a company and you have company vehicles, it's the same taxes or no?
I believe I'm almost sure it's the same thing, but don't quote me on that. I'll have to double check that.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Any other questions or comments? I guess you can see just from our discussion that there's a lot of questions and a few unknowns about this whole change. So I know we haven't said anything out, and I know you indicated we plan to have a communication, and I think it's very important that we do that so that it doesn't appear that we have a choice in this change. It's coming down from the state, but still, I think it's important for the public to be aware of the change so they're not surprised. And if they have any questions, they'll have an opportunity or a mechanism to ask those questions, obviously, to the tax assessor's office and get a response so they understand the process going forward.
Yep, agreed. And we'll have that conversation when we go back and figure out the best timing to do that.
Great. Okay, thank you for that update. We'll move on in the agenda to items 6, 7, and 8, which is under the tax collector's office. We have the Claims Committee report for September 2024, followed by the tax narrative for September 2024, and the monthly tax collector's report dated for August 2024. The item 7, all of those items were sent out yesterday afternoon to the committee. Hopefully you received them. And we have our tax collector, Lisa B., to give us the update. We can't hear you, Lisa. And you're not showing muted.
How about now?
Yes, there you
Okay,
go.
great. I'll be right on top. Good evening. Thank you. And to begin, the first item I have for you is the claims report. And this month we do have claims for you, but it is for informational purposes. You do not have to vote on it because there's nothing in excess of $10,000. So unless you have any specific questions about the claims, I can pass through to the other reports for you, which are the 2 spreadsheets and the narrative. We do what is basically a 14-month instead of a 12-month look back on our immediately prior grand list year, which was the 2022 grand list. Even though our fiscal year ended on June 30th of 24, our auditors look at our collections through August 31st for that grand list year, and that collection rate is what they track for us. So on the first sheet, It says 60-day at the top. It's actually 62 days. But the collection rate for that immediately prior grand list through August 31st of 2024 was 98.94%, down slightly from the prior year, but a strong showing nonetheless. With regard to the current year that started July 1st, 2024 and ends in June of 2025, that's the second spreadsheet. And through the end of August, we were at 53.31%. Again, down a little bit from last year, but nothing to be concerned about. I think we're in pretty good shape. We spent a lot of time working on the tax sale, which I covered in some detail in the narrative. The sale was Monday, the 9th. As you know, I've been talking about the sale since November of last year. We started with more than 225 properties. And in the very beginning, you were concerned about how many there would be left. And we said we thought most of them would pay. And that is exactly what happened. On the day of the sale, we were left with 7. And we did also have 6 taxpayers or parties in interest on those properties file for bankruptcy, which means we cannot enforce collection at this time. We had to adjourn the sale on those 6. So we did have 7 that we sold, and we have 6 that are sort of in abeyance, waiting for the bankruptcy court to weigh in. But all 7 of the properties that we offered for sale did sell. Those owners do have 6 months from the date of the sale to redeem. And I spent a little bit of time in the narrative explaining how redemption works. The sale was a very, I feel, successful endeavor, even before the actual afternoon of the sale itself, because we did have 212 properties pay prior to the sale. The purpose of the sale was to get those payments in. And we collected, if all of the bidders perfect their bids, which we'll know by tomorrow, we will at that time process the last of our tax sale payments, and it'll be just under $6.6 million that we took in through the sale. If a bidder doesn't perfect, we're going to go down the line of bidders and offer the property to the next highest bidder. There was very vigorous bidding on some of the properties. There were upwards of 30 people registered to bid. We don't make a profit on these properties, just so you're aware. We collect and we process our taxes and fees and interest and nothing more. The overbid, the amount over what we do, is going to basically sit in a bank account and wait and see what happens with the property. If the property is going to be redeemed, it's going to go back to the bidder. The money goes back to the bidder. If the property is not redeemed, and unfortunately the owner loses their property, that money gets turned over to Superior Court. And the Superior Court is responsible for determining who gets that money. Does the owner get it? Does the lien holder get it? Does someone else get it? That's not something that the city is involved with. So there's a lot that happens after the sale. There's another mailing that goes out. There's a legal notice that goes out. There's a lot of paperwork. We have liens to release and things like that. So the sale is over, but the work is not. The website for the sale is still up. And as things change, as bids perfect, I post all that information. It's all public information. But I'm glad to take your questions on the sale. But before I do that, I have to say that I'm very grateful for the support that our division had from the administration and from the policymakers to allow us to pursue this initiative, because it is very difficult when you are seizing property to sell for taxes. It's a very serious matter. It's a very emotional matter for a lot of people, and we would not be able to conduct a sale of this magnitude without having really the unequivocal support of the policymakers. And I appreciate that very much. And I really can't express my gratitude strongly enough. It could not be done without that support. Everyone was very supportive of the endeavor. And The reason why we do that is, of course, to try to keep the collection rate high. The higher we can keep our current collection rate, the lower the Board of Estimate can set a mill rate. It allows for more stable budgeting. It contributes to a higher bond rate. It allows for an easier situation for the budget office and the finance office. So there's a host of reasons to try to keep that collection rate high. But the number one reason is to allow a lower mill rate, which is tax relief for every taxpayer. And that's why we do tax sale. And thus ends my homily for tonight. I'm glad to answer your questions.
Thank you, Lisa, as always. What I would like to start off with a virtual clap and applause to your team for an outstanding tax sale and effort they put toward. We know that it's a lot of work. You know, other towns might, utilize a third party to, go through this process. We do it in-house, but we know in-house it takes a tremendous effort and a lot of coordination and teamwork. So again, congratulations and thank you for all of your efforts.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
As far as the tax collection rate goes, you kind of glossed over the fact that we came in at 98.8, I think, just missed 99, but still a tremendous effort.
98.94.
Oh, 98.94. Well, we, close enough for rounding. We'll call it 99.
Sorry.
So
We did our best. I'm sorry. It's
I
still
know,
pretty good.
great.
It's still pretty good.
Great.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from the committee? I've asked Lisa if she could present this information to the full council at the council meetings for Tuesday, September 24th, September 24th, to give the full council and the public an update on our full year tax collection activity, as well as the result, the tax. So you'll hear this again on the 24th, but hopefully you'll agree with me that you don't have any problem hearing it over and over again, because it's a great story. Tremendous amount of work that's being done there. So okay, if there's no other questions or comments, there's nothing for us to vote on, so we'll move on, and we'll see you, Lisa, at our council meeting on September 24th.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. We'll see you all then.
Great.
Good night, folks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, moving on, item 9 on the agenda, which is to the Oak Hills Park Authority financial statements for both June and July of 2024. And we have from Oak Hills Denise Brown to join us this evening to give us the update. You're still muted, Denise?
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. So, all right. So I have the reports for the month of June, which was, it's the end of the fiscal year, of course, for for Oak Hills. And we've had a good year. For the month of June itself, we had budgeted around $151,000 for a net profit. And we actually came in around 220. So we had about $69,000 to the good, which added to, our operating expense, which is always wonderful to have the extra money. And then we were able to pay down approximately $127,000 to the city towards the debt. And then for the full fiscal year, and after all the expenses taken out of the operating funds, we had budgeted around $416,000, but we actually came in with about $607,000. So we were up for the year over what we had budgeted, about $191,000. So very pleased with having that to, fall back on and use. So we also have, as part of that, those expenses, our commercial debt that we had paid down about $159,000, which is for our golf cart lease. We are in the third year. We have 2 more years to go on the golf carts. And then most of the other things are the superintendent's equipment. So, that's kind of slowly getting chipped away on. But for the year, we've had a good year. We've had almost 50,000 rounds of golf. We're almost at capacity at this point. It's been, 2 very good years for us with almost full tee sheets. And so we're pleased to see that, the public is coming out and playing golf, and that we've had good weather to support, the rounds. And so it's been a good year in all for the month, for the full year. Does anybody have any questions for June?
One question, Denise, any assessment as to why the coming in at almost 200,000 over the annual budget? Any specific thing that you can point towards? Was it just a lot of activity, a lot of golfers coming out?
Yeah,
Or was there anything else that?
Well, I mean, we had raised, I think, the price, I think we raised it $1 last year, which maybe contributed to a little bit more of the income that we had. But we've had a lot of positive feedback on how good the course has been. And that I think we're just getting golfers in, we're getting our regular residents in, but we're getting a lot of outside, I would say non-resident golfers in. We've hooked up with a company, it's called 4Up, and they have helped promote the golf for us. And so with their marketing techniques, we kind of have a little bit of a, we give them a few rounds and then they bring in a lot more business. So it's working out very well. So we've used them now for the past 2 years. And I think that's really benefited us with this company. So, I mean, that's kind of that's how I kind of look at it. So.
Right.
Okay.
Councilman Jim Freya.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Denise, nice to see you again. I think that the golf course has got an excellent reputation throughout Fairfield County. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to play that much this year, but I have played with some other people from some private courses in Fairfield County at Oak Hills, and they say that the Oak Hills course is probably one of the better ones that they've played on, including their own country clubs that they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. And and at Oak Hills you're paying, I think, about $48 for a resident. So it's a pretty good deal, and I think that we're getting an awful lot of people from outside of Norwalk, non-Norwalk residents that are playing as well. The other thing I just wanted to ask about was 2 things really. First is, what's the status of the restaurant? How are they doing? Can you give us an update on that? And then secondly, what's on the capital? What kind of capital are you looking at to reinvest some of that profit that you have? I assume we're going to put that back into the course, and what kind of things can we look forward to?
Well, so for your first question, I mean, the restaurant is slowly picking up. I think that, people are kind of finding out that it's there. I'd like to see them do a little more advertising. I don't feel like maybe they've kind of reached out enough, but their food prices are good. And, I eat there almost weekly or maybe every other week. And so I've noticed that when I'm there, there's always, more tables every time I go. And so that's really encouraging. Haven't had a report yet from them for the past month. So, but John, who is the one of the partial owners, is very happy with how everything is slowly getting to a more, more activity in the restaurant. One of the things with our restaurant, unfortunately, it's a very large space. And so it's kind of a difficult space to really fill up. I feel like it would have been nice if the restaurant was maybe half the size. I think it would have been more functional for the facility, but so we do have a lot of extra, we can hold like 200 people if they wanted to. They haven't really gotten into the parties yet. I mean, they offer parties and they have had events. I'd like to see them have more. I think that would really boost them. And one of the things that has always sort of been an issue, it's like historical issue with Oak Hills, is that when people would come and have events and have outings, they didn't use the restaurant. They used to kind of bring in their own food or bring in their own drinks. And so we're trying to get a handle on that. And so that, when people come and book an event, they're going to use our restaurant. That's going to be part of the process. It's not, I feel that's kind of just something that they've been able to do in the past. And so that's something that they want to correct. So I think that would definitely help, boost the sales for going forward. But, John is well aware of it. It's slowly getting a handle on it. So I think that will help going forward. And then for the capital expenses, one of the projects that we have, it's starting actually this week. It's going to take about 6 weeks. They're going to be doing the first phase of the bunkers. They're going to be doing 9 holes, not 9 consecutive holes, but 9 different holes on the course. It's going to take, it's going to take about 6 weeks. The course is going to be open while they're doing it. They might need to kind of reroute some of the way they play, but it's going to be a huge improvement because I think the bunkers are in pretty need of repair. So it's going to be a project where they remove all the existing turf around the bunker, they remove all the sand, they go down to the floor, they put in a new ventilation and a new drainage system, and then they're going to put in new sand and put in the new turf around it. So it's going to be a higher grade sand, it's supposed to last longer, stay cleaner, and drain better. So that's one of the major projects that we have starting actually this week.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. So I'll just tap on for the month of July. It's going into our first month for the fiscal year. And there again, we've had a good month. The weather was good. We budgeted around 340,000, but we actually brought in around 388 after netting all the expenses. So we're about 47 cash flow over, which is always good. And there again, the rounds are excelling. The tee sheets have been full. Been talked to our pro Paul, and he kind of feels like it's running along pretty smoothly. And thank you for your comments about the golf course. Our superintendent, we actually had a superintendent day, appreciate our super day, because Jim Shell, he's been with us about 10 years now. So he has really been able to work with slim pickings at first. We've been able to help him financially to do his projects and get better equipment through the past year. So we appreciate that you and other golfers actually are, noticing that we're working hard at Oak Hills to, make everything cleaner and more up to date and usable for the public. So. And I have one extra item just to mention. Our dedication for Art Goldblatt is going to be October 5th. It is a Saturday. It will be at the Oak Hills Tennis Center at 12:30, and I will send an invite to Irene also for the mayor, and that's on the books right now. That's how we have it set up for Art.
Excellent. That was my next question. So
Oh, okay.
great.
Any other questions?
October 5th at 12 p.m.
At 12, no, 12 yes, you're right, 12 PM. That's right. Let me just double check my calendar, but I'm most positive that it is, yes, October 5th. And the rain date was the 6th, which I sure hope it doesn't rain, because that day we're also hosting a tournament for grassroots. So we are praying that October 5th is a good day.
Great, great. Any other questions or comments for Oak Hills? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Denise, for the update, all positives, and hopefully everyone will see you on October 5th.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night. On in the agenda to item 10, which is an authorization. Authorize purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Gov Connection, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $385,223.54 for the network distribution and access switches, account number noted under the city technology. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Yohannes, thank you. And we have with us our IT Director, Joyce Liu, to walk us through this authorization.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For the past 2 years, IT has been planning and working on upgrading our City of Newark's outdated network infrastructure to improve the efficiency, security, reliability, and our digital environment. We have finally reached the final stage of our project, which is involving replacing all the access switches that connecting to the end user's device. Part of this project is funded by ARPA. The remaining will be covered by IT department's capital request for this year. This upgrade is originally included in the IT department's capital request for the current fiscal year. However, we didn't receive the full amount needed for the project, back then. So this additional ARPA funding has helped us to complete our project. All the funds will go directly to purchase the network hardware and the licenses. So all the work will be doing in-house. So our network team will handling all the installation. So will be no third-party vendor involved in this. So which is that they save the city a lot of money because we are doing all the money spending on the hardware only. So normally installation is with third parties kind of very expensive. So since it's typical take about 45 to 60 days to receive the network equipment, after we ordering, we aim to have everything delivered by the end of 2024. We will start coordinating with each department in January 2025 and to schedule the installation for each department. Because lots of time, because it might be the installation of access switch might be disturbing, the working environment. So we plan to do after 3 o'clock or 4 to make sure we do not disturb the business as usual. So with more than 30 department and 14 business locations in the city, we will work closely with each department to ensure the installation during off hour, right? To avoid all the disruption. Our goal is to complete all the installation by end of June and spend the following 3 months testing everything to wrap up the project by end of September. For the reason we are aiming for end of September, because in October 1st, we used to lease, city being outsourcing, leasing our fiber throughout the digital back office. And one of our project is kind of stop leasing and bring all the fiber extension into all the locations. So by the contract ended, we are not going to extend the contract with digital back office. Everything will be managed by IT and in-house. So I'm here for any question you might have for the project.
Questions or comments for Joyce on this item? I think it's great that that we were able to allocate a large percentage of this amount from the ARPA dollars. So this is a great use of that funding to shore up our infrastructure from a IT standpoint. So sounds like you have a great plan. It's going to take almost a full year, sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a small team, and and then coordinate with all the department, 30 department, and so it will take a while. But we are going to put down a schedule, working with all the department, make sure that everything runs smoothly.
Great. Okay, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll call for the question at this point. All those in favor, sign raising your hand. All those, any opposed? Councilmember Wiggins, your vote,
I'm
please.
in favor, sir.
Thank you. Great. So it's unanimous. And we will move this item to the full council Tuesday, September 24th for final review and approval.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the agenda, and we'll cover, I guess we can cover item 11 and 12 together. They're related. Item 11 reads requesting a special, actually we need to address them separately. So item 11, requesting a special capital appropriation in the amount of $100,000 for the purchase of a replacement boat for the harbor master to manage and oversee the operations of the Norwalk Harbor, Norwalk Islands, and a portion of Long Island Sound, and authorize the issue of notes or temporary notes in amount not to exceed $100,000 to finance said appropriation. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Jim Freya, thank you. And we have with us CFO Jared Schmidt, along with Jessica Vonacek, of Economic Community Development, to cover this special capital appropriation request.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett, and I'll kick it off. You're right. These next two do actually go together. They're kind of a package deal, even though you're voting on them as separate items. And just as a reminder for background, last month we requested a reallocation of ARPA funding for several items, including the use of $100,000 toward a replacement boat for the harbor master. And during that discussion, we let you know that there was going to be another source of funding for an additional $100,000 for a total of $200,000 that would be needed to fund the replacement boat. So with the next two items, we're essentially requesting to repurpose $100,000 that's currently approved for the arts and culture plan. And that funding instead is going to go to provide the other half of the funding necessary to purchase the replacement boat for the harbor master. So that's what the next two items are going to do. This first item is the special appropriation of the $100,000, and then the next item would be the deauthorization of the $100,000 for the arts and culture plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have more detailed questions, Jessica is on as well.
Councilmember Jim Freya.
Yeah, I had two questions. First of all, I read through the design for it's a Munson boat, I guess, with a door, almost like a landing craft to go up onto the islands. What is the intention of using, or why is that one of the specifications? I assume the other boat that we had didn't have, it wasn't equipped with a door that opened up on the front. Is it that necessary that we give a boat to do landings, and are we going to be using it to offload equipment, or what's the purpose of that?
Yeah, so I can help with that. It's Jessica Vonashek. So we worked with the harbor master and both of the assistant harbor masters in order to be able to spec out the boat. And so what we heard from them is a couple of things. One is that it helps to be able to do rescue where we can land the boat up on the beach and be able to access for special events that may be happening. In addition, it can act as a backup for any boat that may be disabled that is a different city boat, where we have the functionality in order to be able to do that. And in addition to that, a large responsibility for the harbor master is to be able to maintain the islands and be able to manage the islands for campers and different folks that are on the islands at any given time. So it helps with that. And then lastly, we're also understanding that the harbor master and the assistant harbor masters are responsible for doing a lot of the management on the moorings and also the different anchorage points. And so we understand that it's helpful for them to be able to do that as well. I will add that I am not a sea person in any way, shape, or form. And so we've asked these questions and that's what we've been told. But if we need more information, we can also get more information for you with specifics.
I guess I'm just a little confused because we've never had a boat that had that was more or less a landing craft, and I assume like an old LST from D-Day or something like that. But
yeah.
Why, how many people had to be rescued off the islands that we couldn't get because we didn't have a landing craft? And how often do you need that landing craft to go up on an island? If it was once or twice a year, I'd say, yeah, that sounds like something that we should have. And there are other boats that I would think within the harbor. We've got several marine construction companies that are out there that, would surely love to jump in and participate in some rescue if there was the need was there. It just seems like this almost seems a bit of an overkill.
Yeah, and again, I'm not particularly the strongest sea person, so we really look to the harbor master and the assistant harbor masters in order to be able to help us spec the boat. So point well taken. I can say that I think that there are kind of a handful of boats that need to be used interchangeably in the harbor, and that they're all in varying arrays of state. And I think that at this particular point, the harbor master boat, your point's well taken that the harbor master boat doesn't have that currently. But in addition to that, the current harbor master boat is also fiberglass hull and has a lot of other deficiencies that obviously decisions were made more than 20 years ago when we purchased the boat, that today we're sort of looking at saying, we wouldn't really make those decisions again, right? If we were going to make the decision again and we're going to buy a vessel that's going to last between 20 and 30 years, then we want to buy a vessel that has certain specifications to it so that we have the versatility and the flexibility to use it in different ways. And that way, as the different boats sort of gain their age and have their lifespan, then we have always a functioning vessel in the harbor that has the ability to do these things. And I think that it was thought of a little bit more holistically in the sense of saying, we know what we kind of don't want and don't need, which is the fiberglass and some of the other things that the current harbor master boat has. And so that's how we ended up with the specs that you see on the page.
Does it have I looked at the specs and I didn't see anything about a crane on there.
No, we don't have a crane on there specifically because we
Right.
also work with we work with a couple of the different yacht clubs around, like Sprite Island and also South Norwalk and some of the other marinas as well. And so what we were also trying to do is make sure that we know that the police boat was being funded also more recently. And so trying not to spec a boat with the same functionality. I think the police boat was, more than 300,000 or something like that. And so we didn't want to go with a boat that was that expensive. And if you saw the quotes, I think one quote was 326 and another quote was 295. And so we went with the most economical quote that we could, that gave us the spec that we were looking for. And so trying to be able to balance that with some of the other vessel purchases for the harbor is what we were going for.
The reason I asked the question is because, as you mentioned, the harbor master is required to do some maintenance on moorings and maintain moorings. Without a crane on the boat, you can't inspect moorings very well.
Yeah, we definitely wouldn't be able to pull them up, and we definitely wouldn't be able to replace them. We wouldn't be able to replace any of the parts without some sort of support in some meaningful way. So noted on that. I think that there's a fine balance, right? I think we could have probably gone with a boat that had all of those pieces with it, but we were also trying to work within the budget of 200,000 so that we weren't pushing too hard on budget. And so trying to make sure that, again, those vessels complement each other and that we're not pushing too hard on the budget items.
So I know we're not going to vote on the second one right away, but I'm curious now, the $100,000 that we're getting from item number 2 here, or number 8B, or whatever it is. What are we giving up with that to take that $100,000?
Yeah, so we're not actually giving up anything because when you voted last month on the ARPA items, what we did is so the Arts and Cultural District Plan is actually required. It's required by the state because we are declared an Arts and Cultural District, and a plan is required by the state in order to complete that certification. And so that plan is $100,000. Originally, we requested $100,000 in our capital budget, which you approved for this particular fiscal year. When we worked with finance and worked with the mayor's office, we said, okay, instead of having that capital item be in the capital budget, we'll actually put it in ARPA. And it helped us to do that because if you remember, Senator Duff helped us receive $5 million of ARPA money. And we were about $50,000 short in trying to make that number balance out. And so it helped us to be able to move the arts and cultural plan from the capital budget over to the ARPA budget. And we ended up paying $50,000 from the $5 million that Senator Duff was able to secure for us, in addition to $50 million that was repurposed from some of those other items that you voted on last month. So in reality, we're not losing anything or missing out on anything. We're actually just closing out a capital budget item that we would have,
Okay.
that capital budget item would have actually closed out. We wouldn't have bonded for that.
Right. I love to see that when that happens. Okay, I'm just a little apprehensive that we're overkilling on this boat. Maintenance of moorings is important, but we don't have the tools on the boat to do that. The other thing about the door opening up on the front, which as long as I've lived in Norwalk, I don't remember anybody having to be rescued off an island that we needed a boat that had a front end that went down there. And there was also a couple of marinas in town that had landing craft that was used for doing island cleanup and things like that. So I'm just a little apprehensive about the design, the requirements that we have for this boat.
Understood. And I think one of the things that we could do is we could say that we could amend based on the comments. We could say that if you were to vote on tonight's items, that we could go back and get the scope revised so that the boat does not include those particular pieces. And honestly, Councilperson Frere, you would know better than I would specifically about talking about these things. So it's something that we could say that if we were to approve the items, we'll go back and we'll revise the estimate to not include that particular item or that particular specification on the boat.
Yeah, I think it would be worth a conversation with somebody to explain to me, to make me feel better about that the money we're going to spend, that we actually really need it, that there's a need, there's a proven need, that we need that landing craft where the front opens up and we can go storm the island. That's my only concern. And then the fact is that maybe you replace the front end door with a crane that helps you inspect the moorings.
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely a conversation that we can have. I think there's so many specifications on the spec sheet. You know, I think it's 4 or 5 pages long or something like that. And I'm sure that we can get some revised estimates based on some of those needs. But in addition to that, happy to connect you and anybody else with the harbor master and some of the assistant harbor masters to be able to explain their day-to-day work in more of a detailed level.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you, Jess.
Councilmember Dewan Wigan.
Thank you, Chair. So will we be voting on this with the amendments that Councilman Freire said? Because I'm in 100% agreement with him about the overspending. So how is this vote? How are we looking to vote on this?
Well, we're voting on the special cap for $100,000, and then a reduction in item 12, a reduction of $1,000 from the arts and cultural plan. So that there'll be a total of $200,000 available vote. Now, if the boat comes in under that 200,000, fine. The excess will be returned back in to be utilized in items. If it comes in more than 200,000, then we would have to look at other line items in terms of how we can find the additional funding. Hopefully, we won't have to do that. So with these, we're not actually on the change of the boat. We're kind of voting on providing a baseline dollar amount of $200K that will be utilized for the boat. So the changes that Councilman Freire had recommended, if those changes in the scope of the boat that we purchased can happen within that 200,000, and I think we'll be in a good place.
So we're voting on passing this along to the full council at the next meeting.
That is correct.
So we would have time between now and the next meeting to get some additional information, have some additional conversations with the harbor, maybe the harbor commission or the harbor master.
Yeah, I can definitely make that happen. So my understanding is that the meeting is on September the 24th. I think that's right for the Common Council.
That's the next
4th.
council meeting.
Great. So the 4th Tuesday. So I think we actually have a couple of weeks to figure that out. So I'm more than happy to coordinate an update of the estimate that sort of shows the different options that we talked about this evening, and also happy to set up any meetings that anyone may want to have with the harbor master and the assistant harbor masters to understand the daily operations that they're looking at. Because again, they'll be able to give a lot more information about what their day-to-day looks like that can provide, the context that you may be looking for.
Okay. Why don't we do that? So we could we amend the motion to not to exceed the estimate that's been given? Or I leave that up to you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you're correct. I mean, the total amount that pending approval, the total amount that would be available to purchase the boat would be $200K.
Okay.
And if for some reason, it comes back that more than 200K is needed, then that needs to be assessed as to,
Right.
do we approve additional funding or do we modify the scope to remain under the amount that was allocated?
And so hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we'll have that information.
That is correct.
Right. I would actually like to add that you'll have it well before then, because as a matter of fact, Economic Community Development is actually meeting on September the 19th, which is next Thursday. And we would like to be able to bring both this item to Common Council as well as the potential contract for the boat, because it takes between 12 and 18 months to actually be able to build it out. And as you know, this is ARPA money, so we really need to be able to move that along, which is why it's on this evening's agenda. And so I'll commit to the committee and also the mayor's office that we'll get that updated information before the Economic Community Development meeting so that we are on the same page in order to be able to move that forward through Common Council on the 24th.
So are we going to approve this again at the ECD meeting?
We need to not approve. What you're doing tonight is actually approving the movement of
Authorizing
money
the
and the
money.
transfer of money, but at the Economic Community Development Committee, it would actually be the approval of the contract in order to be able to put the purchase order together to create that to have the boat start construction.
Okay. So we have a couple of shots at this.
Yeah.
All the shots are just as important as all the other ones.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments relating to item 11, which is the special capital appropriation? Okay, hearing seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of this request show by a raise of hand. All those, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed have the same right. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay, so we have one abstention, which is Councilman Jim Freyer. Thank you. So this item, the special capital appropriation will move forward to the full council on Tuesday, September 24th. Now to the second part, which we've already had the discussion on, which reads as follows: requesting a reduction in the amount of $100,000 to the appropriation in account number noted under Arts and Cultural Plan, deauthorize bonds in the amount of $100,000. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Heather Dunn, thank you. We've gone through the discussion on this item. I'll open the floor if there's any other discussion or questions on this. Okay, hearing seen none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, show by a sign of raising your hand. Okay, let's see, and it's unanimous. Okay, thank you. So again, we'll move this to the full council on September 24th as well. Moving on to the agenda, item 13, which is it's a transfer related to ARPA, which reads as follows. Resolution: approve ARPA transfer requests in the following amounts and in conformance with Common Council approval of items 2A and 2B on the October 24th, 2023 agenda. So this is stating moving from the Business COVID Assistance account number noted, $85,000, and administration for, that should say ARPA, account number noted, $32,517, and moving those funds to the Mobility Sidewalk and Bike account ARPA account as noted, for a total amount of $117,517. Do we have a motion on this item? Councilmember Doug Sutton, thank you. And we have with us our CFO, Jared Smith, to walk us through these line item transfers.
Yep, thank you. And again, as noted, this is really more of a technical or conforming change. Back in October, when you voted on a contract related to the ARPA funding for the roadway and sidewalks project. Portion of the project was to be funded by the ARPA accounts, and that was intentional. That's the way it was supposed to be. However, the committee did not vote to reallocate the ARPA funding to roadway and sidewalk account. And so that's what this item is doing. It's taking, it's the reallocation of the ARPA funding so that it is in conformance and in compliance with the vote that you made when you were approving the contract for this work.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments related to this transfer request? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor show by a sign of raising a hand. And it is unanimous. Thank you. Great. We'll move this item to the full council on Tuesday, September 24th for final approval. That brings us to items 14 and 15, which is to review the operating budget calendar for fiscal year 25-26 and also the capital budget calendar for fiscal year 25-26. I requested our CFO, Jared Smith, and to walk us through the calendar. The calendar has been put together and in place, and as was mentioned earlier, our first task will be the public hearing on Monday, September 23rd at 6:00 p.m. to provide the public an opportunity to share their thoughts as it relates to the operating and budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And so we asked our CFO to just walk the committee through what the calendar looks like going forward so that you will be fully aware of what the key dates are and key activities. So I'll turn it over to Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so what we did was we looked at as usual, as we would normally do, look to the charter for guidance. And these two calendars basically reflect what's laid out in the charter. For the most part, the calendar is the same as it was last year, with the exception that Mr. Burnett talked about, which was the addition of some public input at the very beginning of the process. And so that's the hearing that's going to take place on the 23rd at 6:00. Also, as the public speaker noted earlier tonight. So you have both the operating and capital budgets. This year, we're trying to formally align the meetings and the reviews with all the department heads so that we're looking at both at the same time, so that we're covering both the capital and the operating, their requests during the same meeting. So it's not, it's just going to be more efficient, so we don't have to have multiple meetings in order to review both of the budgets. All the details are before you. Not sure how much you want to go into the details. Probably the main pieces of this are, other than the internal, with regard to the internal work that's done, we start the reviews during December, the beginning of December and into the middle of December for both the department budgets and also including the Board of Education in that mix.
One question I might have is, I know last year, well, two comments. One, for the finance committee, last year, even though we're holding this meeting on September 23rd, we did hold an early budget, public hearing in October, last year of 2023, along with the assistance of the Board of Education. We were kind of doing this, we did this last year as well. So not as early as September, but we did hold a public hearing in early October to get input from the public as it relates to the operating budget. So the slight change this year is that we're also going to be just looking for input, not only as it relates to the operating budget, but also the capital budget as well.
Right, and that change was also, the date change, Mr. Chair, was part of the charter change. Because the charter calls for that hearing to be done prior to October 1st. And so we were, it had to take place in September.
One question I had, I know we did have somewhat of a delay in getting the actual budget books. Do we have somewhat of a estimate as to when we the entire council can expect to receive the budget prior to going into the approval of the budget?
We haven't talked about those informal dates, the dates that are not specified within the charter yet, but it's something that we will be going through and talking about, internally, those things that aren't specified in the charter, and start kind of layering those into the process and fitting them in between dates. So we haven't talked about a specific date, but obviously we're gonna get it to you in plenty of time for you to review and be prepared for upcoming hearings, and certainly to be able to vote on it with plenty of time.
Great. Councilmember Jim Freya.
Thank you. Jared, what is going to be, is there going to be a presentation that you're going to give, or have you thought about this? I mean, it's getting, input from the public 3 months into the year about the budget that's going to be for next year is, it's kind of difficult to figure out, to make really intelligent choices as to what is really going to be needed for, 15 months in the future. And I do recall when we did have our meeting last October that the Board of Ed did a pretty kind of a more robust presentation of what their needs were, as opposed to the city would more or less just outlining what the process was going to be. So I guess so it's two questions. Are you going to coordinate with the Board of Ed so that we have, similar type approaches and everybody's on the same page? And then I guess the other thing would be, is there anything that you can present that, or have you thought about what you want to present as part of this meeting? And again, we're just asking for, I mean, it could be pretty chaotic if you're just asking for what do people want to see in the budget. There should be some guide rails, I guess, that we should be putting out there, that you just can't ask for anything that you want.
Yeah, I understand. I totally understand what you're saying, Jim. And we did met with Lunda yesterday to make sure that we're both the Board of Ed and the city are on the same page in terms of the level of information that we're giving, and the type of information that we'd be presenting. So, you know, I think we can break it down kind of into three, maybe four different pieces. One is, we're going to take a quick look back on what happened in 24 and just, you know, and everything in kind of broad strokes. We're going to see what, how we ended up in 24. We'll take a look at, you know, possibly some of the challenges, early challenges that we might be seeing in 25. And then going forward, what the, you know, again, very broadly, what the priorities might be for 26. You know, when I understand what you're saying, and I think it's gonna attract probably certain people from the public to this forum, and it'll probably, I imagine, be those who are already in tune to the budget and already have some opinions based on you know, living here for a while, following the process, knowing the structure of the city government, knowing some of the projects that have been invested in, and maybe some that haven't been invested in. And so, you know, I imagine that it's gonna, you know, to your point, I think a lot of what we'll hear, and we're trying to drum up people to come out and give us their thoughts, is going to be based on their prior knowledge of the budget, I suspect. And so, and then the fourth piece of it is going to be taking a look at the calendar again, for the public to know when certain dates are hitting, and you know, when their time to come in again would be when we do a hearing later on in the budget process.
Yeah, I would think that I can imagine a rather chaotic situation if it was just open-ended and anybody could come in and start talking about their pet projects or the way they think the city should be run. That's the only reason I'm concerned about some guidelines that are put together, and you know, that we're not, you know, perhaps the guideline is that we're not going to exceed 2% of what the current budget is. You know, and you know, just broad, as you say, broad-based category or guidelines that we can follow.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're going to have a pre-meeting next week, before the hearing actually happens, where we can talk about things like, you know, do we want to you know, we're obviously looking for input and welcome any input. As you know, there is the potential for it getting out of hand, and, you know, recognizing that, and, you know, being able to, you know, to temper the conversation, and to, you know, make it as productive as possible, and to have as many people to be able to express their opinions as possible as well.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts or comments relating to the budget calendar?
Yeah, Greg, who's going to preside at that over that meeting?
Typically,
hearing.
if we follow, if we follow the past public hearings that have been conducted, the meeting is opened by the Finance Committee for the Common Council, which would be myself, and the chair of the Finance Committee for the Board of Education, who is Sherry Pritchard. So the two of us will open the meeting. Then we will provide an opportunity for the mayor and superintendent to share some thoughts. And then CFO from the city and CFO from the Board of Education will provide their opening presentations. As mentioned, Jared and Lunda have already met and comparing notes in terms of their presentations. And then we'll open it up to the public. And that's the real essence of this meeting, to have a public hearing. We we haven't thought about any type of guidelines or guide rails for the public hearing, because we want the public to just share what their thoughts are. No decisions will be made as a result of this public hearing, but we want to know what the public has to say as it relates to the operating and capital budgets. And then having this meeting this early in the process allows us to take that input and see how it can be. So again, we're not taking any votes or making any decisions on September 23rd after the public hearing, but we do value and welcome the input from the public as it relates to both operating capital budgets, and we'll take that information and act on it appropriately. Okay, any other comments or questions related to the operating capital budget calendar? Again, we'll have plenty of opportunity. We'll see it again on the 23rd, and then obviously going forward during each of the finance committee meetings, we'll get updates on key things that will be taking place and whatever input is needed for those meetings. So with that, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councilmember Heather Dunn. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for your time
Thank
and
you.
efforts.
Thanks.
And
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
everybody.
have a good evening. Take care.